all that. In regards of Karlstadt and Martin Luther. Now, I'm still researching what was, totally going on, because we have, history has been, well, actually, we don't know anything in our days. We haven't learned anything at all, it seems like. It's like just being filled with stupid information, because the powers to be do not want us to know the truth. Because we're living in the world where the devil is in control. Anyway, so I have one more that I'm going to read. Just taking a little break, but then I have my. I really should get some more exercise. My body's just totally crumbling, more and more, and I don't know. Actually, I don't know how that is going to work out. Anyway, of course, I'm going to end in the box anyway, in any case. Well, this, I just threw it out because, I just have so much. But anyway, I read it. I think I have a copy another place in regards of Andreas Karlstadt up in my, but it's, it's a mess with all the papers flying around, and, but anyway, I know where to. The problem is, reading and all that. I have a lot of in regards to the Trinity as well, and it's like I don't have a problem with the Trinity. The only reason why I began to do more digging into it was because, I wanted to find historical sources on this. Actually, it's the Trinity with a twist, but we have the sons of God as well, or the children of God that are newborn and so forward. But I have a lot of papers in regards of before the Nicene Council, because people think that at the or at least this, this lie or whatever you want to call it, this deception that they invented that Jesus was God at the Council of Nicaea is just, actually we have a source from 31 AD in regards of a Roman source. So, where they talk about this guy that is worshipped as God in Judea. Anyway, don't have the source, but this is one of the learned guys that actually didn't dig into that. He was digging into I guess it all gets together, but primarily he was trying to figure out how old the world is, and so forward. There's a video on YouTube on that, and well, of course, there's a lot. I can't remember what the guy's name is in regards to this. Two older guys speaking about, and the one of them have a creation museum, I think, if I remember correctly, and he's interviewing this professor that have done studies in that. But anyway, he mentions the thing in regards to 31 AD, in regards to Rome. So, and it has to be before he died, and we know when he died and so forward, not Jesus, but another guy, a Roman guy and all that, and thereby it must be before, this and this year. So he gets it to 31 AD. So they're already, and of course it's in the Bible as well, in regards to Jesus being God. But you hit into a lot of people that deny the divinity of God. At least I've hit into a lot of them in Jerusalem, in Denmark. You see the Jehovah's Witnesses or the false witnesses all around, and they deny Jesus' divinity. So I have one more in regards of Karlstadt. Was Karlstadt insane on Mosaic law, like Melanchthon said? That will be interesting reading, I think. It's not that many pages, 5-6 pages. Well, it's going to take some time. I'm a slow reader and so forward. And my brain could work a little better. But again, I think the exercise is not really. I got into this stupid spiral of, well, I don't know if it's stupid actually, because it has, kept me reading a lot of things and studying a lot of things. So, but, in regards to I was, pretty physical, I did have my issues all, at that point as well, but, at least my physical condition was pretty good. So, and then I went into, this schooling thing, and, 3 years pushed into 1 year, and even if you used all your time, you couldn't do all the things. It has, just impossible. I think. I don't know who. I don't think anyone in the class ever did. There was one guy that might have made most of the mathematical assignments, but overall it was just impossible. Total impossibility. Totally broke my neck on that, but it gave me in this kind of sense of looking into and reading, and I guess I got a little brain damage in regards to that. So still reading and researching and figuring out what is actually going on and so forth. Of course, in the school system we didn't learn much, like in regards of its the Danish thing and all that, and it seems like a lot of propaganda. Well, a lot of information just for the information's sake. Like, read this stupid story. It's like, what am I going to use that story about? For give me some Bible, and give me some Protestant history. Give me something in regards of the Antichrist. Man, apparently not. Nothing. That's interesting. That all these school systems actually primarily should be for learning and teaching the Bible. Is not. That's the whole idea of going to school. So Satan is not going to, of course, just be careful of Paul. But besides that, it's pretty important to know. And I think if you can actually discern that there are some issues with Paul, you should be. It's like you should be able to discern most. Well, at least more out there are falsehood. But anyway, in regards to Martin Luther and Andreas Karlstadt, so I read this and, trying to figure out, because I know Luther was still having his issues with Andreas Karlstadt, and we have this most diabolical letter in regards to Karlstadt, which Luther writes to a friend. I can't remember who it is, but, I heard this wonderful story that when Karlstadt died, they were spitting on his grave and spitting on his house. But then he says, Luther, he says, but we shouldn't talk badly about the dead. Yeah, I don't know why Luther would have a problem with Andreas Karlstadt, he was his colleague from the beginning, and, so just taking my hula hop, what is called in English, hula hop ring, just to, get a little, anyway, so that goes a little round and back here in the mess, but anyway, we'll work it around, where you can see it here, whoops, there we go, there's it, running around, anyway, so, Andreas Karlstadt and Martin Luther had some issues. And I know they had some issues. The problem is, which is the... And, Karlstadt was more radical, and that he's called the radical and all that. But he's also being, he's being demonized, he's being slandered, he's being hidden away in history and all that. As far as I can see, by the Lutherans. And why wouldn't the Lutherans talk? Well, actually, the Lutherans in our days are not even talking about the Antichrist, they're hiding him away as well. So, but anyway, so I'm trying to figure out what was the issues that Luther had, and I need to read his 8 sermons, and I can see Andreas Karlstadt is replying to these sermons, and he has, he writes 70 booklets or whatever, for release. But that's a lot I haven't read yet in regards to it. And of course he had his issues. So so had Luther, so had Zwingli, so had pretty much every Protestant out there have had their issues. I think I'm not sure if you can find someone that is totally perfect. They all have where you're like. There's still there's still space for improvement. What is it, like room for improvement on that point? Space, room. Yeah, it's room. In regards to the IKEA, room, space, room. Where the birds are flying around and all that. Anyway, just thinking Genesis here. So So what in regards to, okay, so Andreas Karlstadt, as far as that paper I just read, one of the things that seems to be one of the biggies in regards of the idols, Luther seemed to still think that it was, that we shouldn't take down the idols and all of that, and, because of the weak and so forward. And another doctrine was also very, very thing that was, and the funny, well, I have to find another word, but because it's not really funny. But the weird thing is that Luther comes back at Wittenberg, and Andreas Karlstadt is running the things. And Luther comes back in 1522, I think it is. And I also have the thing that Andreas Karlstadt signed with the town council and the other Protestants as well at that time in Wittenberg. So Karlstadt is going forward, because he's the colleague of Martin Luther, and as far as I know, they didn't really have big issues until at that point. I'm not entirely sure when it began to break, but I think that might be the breakage, of the friendship of there. And both of them, as far as I understand it, was excommunicated by, the Pope. So sending Andreas Karlstadt out, it seems like Luther is the cause for actually getting Karlstadt's material censored and getting him kicked out and all that. Anyway, I'm still looking into to that. But anyway, so one of the issues that Luther apparently had with Andreas Karlstadt, one of the biggies, was in regards to idols. And the thing is, in the letters of Luther, he actually says, yeah, it's right, what you have done is correct and all that. But, we shouldn't go so quickly in regards of the weak. So what Luther is actually, he's really slick tongue here, He's saying, oh yeah, what you did was correct. It is correct, in regards to this. But, because of the weak, it's very slick. It's very slick tongued, I think. So he's actually agreeing in the beginning, at least in these letters, agreeing. So yeah, what you have done is correct. But, and that's the but, the evil but, and that's the problem because, the but is actually, I think, very demonic in some sense. It's evil. It's the, now of course, all the Protestants make that, fault and so forward. And we all, we make faults and all that. So it's not, it's still early in the time of Martin Luther, and he will learn more as time goes, as everybody does. But I still think, here's Andreas and the other reformers or Protestants in Wittenberg are agreeing, okay, we need to take these things out, and in regards of, I think there was something in regards to school system as well. But anyway, and Luther comes back and says, oh yeah, it's correct what you have done, but we shouldn't go so. But the thing is, as a scholar, as a learned person that knows, that can read, well, they are in the position to be able to read what is actually in the Bible, and they should instruct the people that can't read about it. Honestly. Instead of saying, oh, it's, that's just how our traditions are, it's how we have done for millennia and so forward, letting the Antichrist rule over us and all that and leading us on the wrong path and so forward. It's just, and Andreas Karlstadt was pretty much, okay, we have it in the Bible. Of course, both of them were still using Paulus. And it's, Luther was using Paulus a lot more than Andreas Karlstadt, where Andreas Karlstadt put more emphasis and more weight on the words of Jesus, which I think is the way to go, actually, because it is the words of Jesus, that should be our master, right? He should be our master. So, not actually Paulus that comes afterward that never walked, talked, or ate, or heard the teaching of, from directly from Jesus and all that. Anyway, and the same thing with the Anabaptists, they followed, and I actually also heard that the what is it called, the baptizers, what is it called, the baptizer, the group of baptizers. I can't remember what it is in regards of something like that. They're called baptizers or something like that. I think it's a pretty big group. We have them in Denmark as well. They still use Paul and all that. But anyway, as I understand it, they actually also might actually have come out from Andreas Karlstadt or being, he was the second guy that wrote a lot of things in regards, he was number 2 and Luther was number 1 in regards of getting material out. And the Anabaptist also used from Andreas Karlstadt, as far as I can see. So Zwingli seems also to have been, but there's something in regards of Zwingli, I think, and his other guy. They still had the Mary doctrine. But, you have to remember, these are the beginnings of, beginning to get truth again. So, but I think both Zwingli and the other guy actually still was, in regards of Mary. I read something in regards of that. I think the Anabaptists pretty much just threw it all away. All this bullshit, out in the trash, and they were persecuted from both sides. Very sadly that the Protestants would actually protest someone that was just more radical than themselves, That's not bad to be radical, but apparently some believe it's bad to be radical as a Christian. Now, of course, being a radical Mohammedan, that's another thing in regards of going to war and slaying people and thinking you go to heaven and having these 72 virgins and all that, which is bullshit and not biblical at all, and Muhammad was a false prophet, but let's not get into that topic. Let's get back to it. So Martin Luther gets back to Wittenberg. And, he gets into the position again of the head because Andreas was actually, controlling the things. And it seems like Martin Luther takes over from there. He pretty much pushed him aside in some sense and end up, as far as I can see, to actually have him expelled from the city. I can't, I'm still missing details and all that, but something is really, really going on and all that. So Martin Luther comes back and he has these 8 sermons, I think it is. I think it's 8 sermons, 6 or 8. I think it's 8. And Karlstadt is later on responding, but he's also getting censored and all that, so he has some difficulty actually getting his information out. I'm not sure if it actually is Luther that, goes so far to actually get Karlstadt, censored. But it wouldn't be a surprise. It's, there's a lot of weird things going on. At least, it's interesting history, at least. Sadly, we haven't heard anything about it. Well, at least very little. We just have heard of the 95 Theses and all that. We never really hear that Karlstadt also is, with Luther actually fighting this, and actually being seemingly great colleagues in the beginning, and then it just... Because it splits up in regards of, the idol things and the idols, because Luther seems to still want his idols in the buildings because of the weak and blah, 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 which is just totally bullshit, If you know something and you're in the position to know something from the Bible, you should, tell it to those that don't have the possibility, that don't read, that that just goes around farming and all that. You should be the person telling them this is actually what is found, or tell them what is found in the Bible. So Andreas Karlstadt was very into this of getting idols and images and whatnot out, and they were a lot closer to the event, so they could see it with their own eyes. Now, of course, these things are still being done, but you pretty much need to do a little more effort, like go to a Roman Catholic country to see these abominations. Now, not only was the problems with idols, there was this cookie Jesus as well, which the Roman Catholics, it's like, oh, that's that Jesus, the cookie, a round sun cookie, or solar cookie, Sol Invictus in regards. Like we have Christ Mass, that's the 25th December, and you see the Antichrist on the television, in regards of Christ Mass. Now, what is the 25th December? Well, it's not the birth of Jesus, but it is the birth of Sol Invictus, or what is it called, Mitra, or, actually, even the Freemasons are agreeable on that. I actually have a Freemason book over here. I'm not sure if I can reach it, but I'll give it a go. Yeah, I got it. Here we go. So this is a Norwegian Freemason book, and I don't really like having it in my home, because there's a lot of abominations in this book and all that, and, the occult, and they're pretty much not Christians. That's for, but they're mixing, Christianity with, which you see everywhere, where the spiritists or whatever, the occultists will use the Bible and twist it totally, they don't read the Bible normally, so they just take whatever and twist it to their own destruction, I guess you could call it. But this is actually a book in regards of all the Freemason things, and it's a Norwegian book. I'm a Dane, but I can read the Norwegian because Norwegian is pretty much Danish. So they just, lost their way, I guess, But they're welcome to come back, I guess, to Denmark at some point. But that's another thing. Sverige Mugstad or something like that. But anyway, that was the release of in Denmark we have 11 degrees, as it seems. Maybe there's a little, but 11 seems to be the official. Yeah. And then they have some variations and all that. But in Denmark, 2 seconds. In Denmark and Sweden and Norway and so forth, they pretty much have 11. And in Iceland, I think it was as well. And it is said that the Freemasons are actually in control in Denmark in regards of, Denmark. And I'm looking into it. It seems like the Freemasons are pretty much the Templars' Knight or something like that. At least they seem to be grown out from the Templars' Knight, or are the Templars' Knight in disguise or whatever. They also have in regards of the so-called Saint John, which also seems to be the thing in regards of Malta, but the Malta are the Hospitallers. So I'm not sure, but they are, in their own book as well, in regards of they see themselves as knights, as temple knights. But they also talk about this St. John thing, and I'm not sure if... I think there was actually something in regards of both the Hospitallers and the Templars. They might actually go back to the same source. I saw a documentary where they had this hospital, or this building, and it talked at some point in regards of other group, and they might actually have been the Templars. So that would explain why both of them is using so-called St. John. It's not St. John, it's actually John the Baptist they allude to. But anyway, so if anyone wants to read the secrets, at least, if they know Danish or Norwegian, or maybe they can read it if they know Swedish as well, they can just, get that book. But in any case, let's get back to the Karlstadt and Luther. Yeah, Karlstadt and Luther. So Luther comes back and, makes these 8 sermons, which is translated also into Danish. Now, it wouldn't be a problem if they were just, at least they exist. That's nice, because I was a little afraid that these sermons didn't exist. Because it would have been, now I could of course just look at Karlstadt and some of the others to get the pieces together. And there seems to be a lot of pieces, It's not that long, well, it's still 500 years, but compared to 2,000 years ago, it's a little harder when you go back in history, go further and further back. It's, it seems like more and more sources might actually be missing, in regards to going further back. Of course, I guess that might, depend in regards of, how much have survived and all that. But when you go back to 2,000 years and all that, it's a little, getting all the pieces and all that. It might be a lot easier, I think, I think it's pretty solid that it's much easier with the Reformation, because we have huge amount of Luther's material, and we have huge amount of Andreas Karlstadt's material as well. Now, it's just not really in the public domain, it seems, but it's out there. Some of it is actually pretty expensive in regard to these scholarly books and all that. It's just outrageous how much you need to pay for some of these books that have some really good stuff. I guess it's one of the ways to actually hide the information from the people. Just make it impossible for the people to actually, who would pay 700 kroners or over $100 for a book, That doesn't seem like, you wouldn't usually do that, would you? At least not like you're, a normal person. Of course, you would also need to find out what the info, that you would need to have some interest in getting, I would, if I had the money, I would not have a problem, if I really wanted the information in regards to Andreas Karlstadt, I would probably be willing to, pay the $100 for a book on Andreas Karlstadt if someone have done all the research and all that. But it's just sad that it has to be So, because, you know, they should work for the people, right? You know, instead of all these scholarly thing and all that, the people are the ones that need to know about these things. And it's like 500 years, you know, and just hiding away good information and good Protestants. You know, I'm looking into Protestant songs as well, and it seems like we have a lot of, you know, we have a lot of songs that, but we don't really, you know, it seems there's some really good songs with a lot of meat on in regards of against the Antichrist, and yet we haven't really heard about them. And then, you know, I found at least two, maybe three actually good ones. But again, then Google made this wonderful, no, actually not wonderful. You know, you see the page, and now you see the page, and now you don't. You have to buy the book now. You know, very annoying, because, you know, you could see the pages beforehand, and then you can't see the page. Yeah, I don't know how they sort these things out, that you can see some of the pages of a book, and then apparently it just changes over time or whatever. I don't know, but very annoying. So anyway. So this document that I just read, you know, just, you know, in regards of getting some, also referring to some pretty good sources and all that, but I think I have the document, and I know I can find the document again. They have this, in Germany, they have this thing where they are doing a lot of research of collecting all the Karlstadt material, which is, you know, 500 years. It's a long time. It should have been done for a long, you know, but okay, at least it's been done now, it seems. But they have German lectures, and I don't know German and all that, so not that much. But they have some in English, and, you know, hopefully they will, you know, come out with their product in a couple of years. Already there has been some years, but hopefully they will finish the project at some point. It will just give another piece to the puzzle, but of course, if you have 70, that would probably, you know, anyway, again, there's not enough to research out there, that's for sure. So one of the issues was the idol things, and I think I would agree with Andreas Karlstadt. I'm actually for iconoclasm, you know, just destroy all the idols, you know, and they could see it, how it, you know, what people did with the idols beforehand, bowing before them, making the upside cross, you know, on their knees before them, and you know, the smoke thing and lightning candles and all that. Utterly disgusting. Just, you know, we are to worship Jesus and Jesus only, or Yeshua and Yeshua only. Not this, you know, not these statues and idols and images and icons and, you know, and kissing them as well and all that. That's just disgusting. It's you know, it's an idol. It's a graven image. It's just a statue, you know. Throw it out, destroy it. You know, get it away. If the weak people can figure out that they shouldn't do it, well, let's help them a little and destroy these images. Yeah, that's the way I think it's much more better than saying, oh, we shouldn't, you know, in regards to the weak people and all that. Well, tell the so-called weak people that this is actually adultery and they shouldn't do it. They should worship God and God alone in regards of God's Son, who is the door to the Father, the only way to the Father, not through so-called Mary or different so-called saints or whatever, you know, these pagan traditions of Rome, just putting on some new labels on them and, you know, rapping and so forward. Anyway, another thing that was a big issue, it seems, in regards of Martin Luther and Karlstadt was in regards of Eucharist. Now, Luther still have this idea that the Eucharist is still the body of Jesus Christ, body, flesh, and it's really weird because Luther himself, you know, understands that the Mass is totally abomination, you know. He understands that this is like the wicked, you know, the filthy document here. You know, if you read the document from 1547, let me see if I can find it so I can find the name. I have it over here, and I should actually have been finished with that document for weeks ago. I started weeks ago reading it. Treatise on the power and primacy of the Pope. No. Uh-oh, are we losing power here? No, okay, it's just getting dark, okay. Let's see here, if I can find the name. Third article, okay. No. Oh yeah, by the way, in regard to the T. No, it doesn't say it there. Second, that the Mass, this is Luther, Martin Luther, 1537, that the Mass under the papacy has to be the greatest and most terrible abomination. That's Luther. And he made a whole document in regards of against the papacy in 1537. 1537, I think it is. Let's see here. It's called the Small Celt Articles. The Small Celt Articles from 1537. But actually, he releases an edited version for the public in 1538. And that's also with Melanchthon's information as well against the Roman papacy. So there's two great documents that just opens up the flood in regards of how they looked at the papacy. Melanchthon had sadly in 1530 in the Augsburg Confession, not really, and Luther, as I understand it, was actually angry at Melanchthon that he had, tried to hit away what they believed in regards of the Antichrist, in regards of the papacy, the office and chair of the papacy. So they are fixing in 1537. Luther has his what shall we say, his door for spilling all the beans. And Melanchthon then also makes a document afterwards, because Melanchthon seems to think that the document is not that, apparently in regards to setup, or I don't know, but anyway, he makes his own. And apparently Luther accepted that document. And apparently it seems like that some believe, and by the way, one of the reasons why Melanchthon would not have written in regards to the Augsburg Confession in 1530 was as some say, was probably that he was afraid of being killed. Luther was a little more, he had already stood on that test in some sense. He was a little more, let's go for it. In any case, just because I have some issues with Luther, and see, that doesn't mean that, it just doesn't mean you throw out all the things, just because he has all the reformers have some kind of an issue here and there. But they were turning the boat and beginning to study the Bible. And in regards to one of Luther's late, that's a thing, when you read Luther, you have to be aware that there's his late writings and his younger writings, and you have to understand that, just because Luther said it, doesn't mean that was what he believed in his later times, we grow in learning and so forward. So, it's getting a little hot here. So he writes this in 1537 and releases it in 1538 with Melanchthon. And as I understand it, Melanchthon in that document usually Melanchthon is the not the abrupt guy like Martin Luther, but as I understand it, he actually is having his day in regards of this document about the Antichrist. So he actually is one of his, as I understand it from those writing about it. So I'm looking forward to reading it. But anyway, so one of the things that Karlstadt had of issues with Martin Luther, or Martin Luther had with Andreas Karlstadt, was also in regards of the cookie Jesus. So, but even if Martin Luther did understand that the papacy mass is the greatest abomination and so forward and all that, yet he was still defending, he was still having problems with the doctrine. It was something, I never understood why they used so much energy on it, but apparently there was an immensely important thing, apparently, if the bread was. I think it's pretty clear from the Bible that it's symbolic. And I'm glad I read the New Testament and I got that understanding before being thrown out and all this, But Zwingli believed that it was symbolic. Andreas believed it was symbolic. Melanchthon apparently also believed it was symbolic. Calvin is said to, I haven't confirmed it, but he also says that, I haven't confirmed that, but Calvin, as I understand, also believed it was symbolic. And then we have a Danish guy as well, Hemmingsen something, which actually got the first position in Denmark, and he was in Wittenberg and so forward, and he knew Melanchthon, and I think he also might have known Luther. But in any case, he comes back to Denmark, get the first position, but because he also had understood that it was only symbolic, he was fired from his position later on. That is from a Danish professor in Denmark that had some history on that. But the Hemmingsen might be actually an interesting guy. And he apparently also wrote a lot because he was fired, but he was allowed to still write. And known in the world apparently as the Danish Light. So even if he was fired from his position. But in any case, so Luther had some difficulties with this doctrine. And we have the transubstantiation doctrine of the Roman Catholics, which they still believe in. When Roman Catholics or papists say they believe in the cookie Jesus, well, no, they actually don't say that. They say they believe in Jesus, yeah. Well, they actually believe in the cookie Jesus. And that's the thing, they believe in a round piece of cookie that actually, they think it becomes God, and thereby they worship it, and they are allowed to worship and venerate it and so forward. It's adultery. It's just one of Satan's tricks, as usual. Anyway, but Luther still had issues, and he got into this consubstantiation instead of transubstantiation, and I don't know what Luther ended out with in his late days, because he had people around him that, and even his close friend Melanchthon seemingly apparently knew that this was only symbolic. So I do wonder if it didn't, if it didn't make Luther think, well, maybe it is only symbolic, But he did he had issues. Zwingli and Luther has a thing coming together and all that, and the only thing that Martin Luther and Zwingli did not agree on was in regard to the Eucharist, if this piece of unleavened bread became the body of Christ, divine and all that. But I think the thing that Luther then, tried to get away from was the so-called sacrifice that the Roman, that they do in regards of the Mass, the abominable Mass, where the priest, as I understand it, makes the bread into Jesus, according to them. And then, they sacrifices Jesus all over again for the dead and the living. So, it might have been what Luther was, that we're not sacrificing, the cookie anymore, but it still becomes the literal body. Yeah, anyway, so this was a big... So these are the two things that seems to be some of the issues that Andreas and Luther had of variance, and I think Andreas Karlstadt was correct and Luther was wrong. But anyway, but of course Karlstadt had his own issues. You can find issues with everybody. Again, you want to have to remember that these people have been in the Dark Ages. They have not been allowed, the people have not been allowed to read the Bible and so forward. And by the way, in regards of Martin Luther, he wrote in one of his last introductions to his work that one have to remember when reading it that, there's a lot of things that he had wrong in his younger days. So he's himself clarifying that, if you're reading my, you just have to be aware that, that I have changed my, there's things I didn't know, and of course we all grow from, going 10 years back, I didn't know what I know now. And now we have a problem in regards to the battery. So actually I actually bought a battery for this mobile, yet the seller didn't send me the right thing, and I sent it back, and apparently the seller says it was lost. So I never got the battery or the money, you know. So I'm still running with these. Oh well. So that's where. Oh. Anyway. So that's at least two things. Andreas also seemed to go for the Sabbath, and I think if he had been, I don't know if he actually became sure if the Sabbath was the Sabbath, but they did have a debate with Ike, I think he's called, and what was it called? And, you know, Ike, you know, threw Luther up in a corner with the question of the Sabbath, because he's, you know, he was like using it as an argument. So, you know, he as a Catholic, you know, what was it called? Ike? No, maybe I'm getting the wrong name. Anyway, you hit into the name a couple of times. But anyway, Andreas Karlstadt and the other guy, you know, Andreas Karlstadt and Luther, Martin Luther, had this debate with this other Catholic guy, and he, you know, Luther comes in, you know, actually it's Andreas that actually has the debate, but Luther ends up, you know, coming in because Andreas is the higher up than Luther. But anyway, Luther gets his, he comes in, and one of the things that is used as an argument in regards of, you know, scripture only and all that, where he's put into a corner, is in regards to the Sabbath, because he says, well, if you're going by the Bible and not, you know, the church, well, you need to keep the Sabbath instead of Sunday. And I don't know why that was so a big an issue for Luther. He should just have said, yeah, we're going to keep the Sabbath, you know? But I think he talks about against Andreas Karlstadt, you know, if Karlstadt is going to continue to talk about the Sabbath, we'll end up, you know, keeping the Sabbath, you know, it's like it's a bad thing, you know? So Luther on a lot of topics was actually breaking, you know? Instead of moving forward, he was just breaking, you know, like, no, you know, it's just this is, you know, it's like, no, this is blah, blah, you know, and he also some quote in regards of, you know, that, you know, not becoming like the Jews in regards to the Sabbath or something like that. I can't remember overall, but it's not looking good in regards of, but anyway, you know, it just doesn't matter. Well, of course it does matter, but in regards of history, we can look back and we can see the issues here and there, but in the end, this is the measurement that we use. And we can see that Sunday is not, you know, and we can also both see from history that, you know, the Catholic Church confirms that they, you know, because they use it as to show that they think they have the authority to change the law of God. So they changed the Sabbath into Sunday and so forth. So even the Catholics knows it. Yet the Protestants have not moved, well, a lot of them at least. Of course, I'm not sure if we even can call them Protestants anymore, but anyway, because no one knows who they protested, which was be the Antichrist, but of course no one knows who the Antichrist is anymore, apparently, which of course is the Pope, the papacy, anyway, and the whole riding the beast is Rome, the great city of Rome, anyway. So we know the Sabbath is not Sunday, so just change it back. It shouldn't be that difficult. Apparently it's, you know, people makes it so difficult, like, oh, I like Sunday better than Saturday. Like, oh my, you know. Saturday will just be the Sunday in some sense, just moving it one day in regards to when you actually, you know, instead of the last work day of Friday, you would have Thursday, and of course I would suggest also changing the names of the weekdays as well, because these goes back to paganism as well, you know. Sunday, moon day, it's easier for me in Danish actually, but you know, you have these, you know, you can look it up for yourself. So, thinking. Yeah, so that seems, at least those 2 points seems to be the conflicts that Martin Luther and Andreas Karlstadt has. At least two of the biggies. I don't know how big the Sabbath issue became, but we know which day is the Sabbath, and why not just, change it shouldn't be that difficult. Well, it's not difficult, it's just because people makes it difficult. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So I think we can sadly thank Luther for, well, we can thank him also for of course, in regards to reading the Bible, and he seems to have been the starting point of it all. It was still, that was an ongoing thing, but he really made a huge hit in regards of it and opened it up for many others. Sadly, I think he should have been more willingly to listen to Andreas Karlstadt. But that's not how it went, and yeah. So I have, was Karlstadt insane on Mosaic law, like Melanchthon said? Well, the thing is, you have to have some kind of a law, don't you, in regards to... The question is, are you going by the law of the Roman emperor, or are you going by God's law, But that's going to be an interesting document, I think, in regards of some other things. Just getting some reading more on Andreas Karlstadt, but, whatever the case, it's still the Bible that is the measurement of the things. And, but I think Karlstadt got closer to truth than Martin Luther. But Martin Luther still had when people try to equate Martin Luther with the Pope, the so-called Pope, well, the difference, and they will just like, oh, Martin Luther is just your Pope, they will say your poop. Well, the difference is that, one big difference is that Martin Luther talked about the Antichrist, the biblical, historical, prophetic Antichrist, which was correct in regards of, the papacy. And Martin Luther wanted people to read the Bible, whereas the Roman Catholic insane asylum did not want the people to read the Bible. And of course, you can find a lot of interesting quotes in regards of Jesuits and Roman Catholics about that, going back in history. But, I found out you can't trust Roman Catholics when they're talking to you. You have to be very careful, that's for sure. Of course, you can learn something from your, if someone is writing something, from his view and angle, and he's a Roman Catholic, you might, you can there's a good chance that you can use it, but just be aware that there's a lot of liars and changing of history and keeping you away from the real history. There's a battle going on, and we were warned about this by Jesus, by Yeshua. So this is the next one I'm going through, and it's going to be interesting, I guess, just to get some more. I can see there's something in regards to Martin Luther and Karlstadt again. The pace of reform, I guess in regards to, Andreas is pointing back in regards of if we should, go slowly and, in regards to the weak and so forward, instead of actually just doing what the Bible says and all that. And again, we see that Martin Luther and Karlstadt, they had that differences in regards to the Eucharist. So again, when you see in the Lutheran churches, they still believe that it becomes the literal body of Jesus Christ. Now, as far as I understand, they don't sacrifice it again like the Roman Catholics, but they are still close, to the Roman Catholic doctrines. And we have had 500 years to, as I understand it, Melanchthon actually went, he continued on after Martin Luther died and all that. And then apparently some went really radical on Luther and went back to the teaching of Luther. Instead of actually moving forward, they went back to, as I understand it, Luther's younger years. And that's not the thing, we still have a lot of issues, pagan festivals, the Sunday thing in regards of the Sol Invictus, the New Year. And I just saw a Danish songbook that has in the Lord's year and something like that. And I'm like, which Lord, or in God's year or something like that. And I'm like, which God or which Lord? I think it's pointed to God, But which God are we talking about? Because the New Year in the winter is not the biblical New Year. It's the New Year of Janus, the double-headed guy, false god, and so forward. So which God are we talking about? Because there's no name in the song, right? It's just, I haven't seen the whole song, but that's probably not the name of Jehovah in the song. So the thing is, which God are we talking about? If we're doing as the pagans, and it's not in the Word of God, which God is, and we're celebrating this new year. Well, it's not the new year of the Bible, so which new year is it? Well, in regards of, Janus. It's incredible. And we have had 500 years to read the Bible. 500 years! And we haven't come any further. It's utterly shameful. I think it's utterly shameful. Here we have in regards. That's the thing with Paulus. Some people take him one way, and some people take him another way. Instead of just reading him as he is, jumping from one thing to another, But some will take, oh, no, Paul, kept the law and, promoted the law and so forth. Then others will say, no. He says, the law is cast on the cross and it's done away and it's, this and that. And, not to be aware that Jesus warned us about an enemy that, if possible, could deceive the elect. So anyway, so how are you going to deceive the elect? Well, you have to look like the real thing, right? And then you have to put in the leaven. So anyway, well, and that might actually have been one of the big problems from Martin Luther and the rest of us in some sense, because his letters is in the New Testament does not mean it's, So anyway, but of course it just verifies the words of Jesus that an enemy would come and sow the bad seeds. The poisonous seeds, the lawless seeds, and so forward. Anyway, I think that's pretty much done for me. I'll get up and do some more exercise and read some more of some more in regards of Karlstadt here, and maybe get some more I don't know. But anyway, that's enough to read. So I don't know in regards of all the traits, all that with Jesus being God and all that. I have a lot of papers, and it's like, I don't need those papers. Of course, it's just, but I don't really need them in some sense, because I know Jesus is God. Just read the Bible and so forward. It's just in regards of historical sources to when I talk with the false Jehovah's Witnesses, and he stirred me up. So in that sense, that was pretty good in regards of when we're talking, and then coming back and getting into and looking up things and so forward, and I found a bunch of things, and all those lies and deceptions and all that, just that Jesus' divinity was invented in 325 at the Council of Nicaea. Bullshit. That's what it is. Directly out. Bullshit. They already believed that Jesus was God, from the beginning. And of course, in the New Testament as well. Now, of course, I don't have the I only have the Bible here. But anyway, which of course the New Testament is in. But already in the Bible, even Paul testifies that Jesus is God. That's not the problem. The problem with Paul is that he leads people into lawlessness. So and eating of meat sacrificed. Every time people have an issue and all that, so always, tend to lead back to Paul. Why are we not keeping the festivals of God? Well, because of Paul. Why are we not keeping Saturday instead of Sunday? Well, because Paul says. Why are you eating everything and anything in regards to food? Well, because Paul says. Okay. Well, Paul. But Paul says. Yeah, okay, but Paul says what Jesus says, So you're going to trust. Anyway, it's like the poop, Can the poop say something that is true? Yeah. All the mixing of his laws and degrees and all that, and that he is, the vigor of Christ and so forward, Which is actually the Holy Spirit. The Spirit was the replacer of Jesus Christ, if anyone. Jesus says, I will send you the Comforter. And who's the Comforter? Well, the Holy Spirit. So that's the one that, reading the Bible, being led by the Spirit, we don't need a priest or anything like that. We just, Jesus or Yeshua is our master. And Yeshua said, don't call anyone on earth Father, or don't call anyone on earth Rabbi. Because there's one that is your Father, and there's one teacher, Christ Jesus, or Yeshua HaMashiach. Anyway, that's like Matthew 23. But be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. But what does Roman Catholics do? Oh, they call the poop the Father. Actually, that was an interesting thing in regards to Trump Fresh. He's reading this Roman Catholic book, and the Catholics apparently in Italy, as understood it, was pretty tired of this guy, but they loved him as their father. It's like, why can't you see anything? Anyway, people. The Bible, and the Bible. That's the thing that defeats Satan. And that's why Satan don't want you to read the Bible, because then you might find out who Jesus Christ really is. Anyway, where's my glasses? I can't see anything. Anyway, I'm going to go on. May Jehovah bless you, and may Yeshua be a most precious pearl. And when you have him, don't let go of him, because there are many that will try. Satan will try on so many different angles and this and that to take that precious pearl away from you. And may the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, be in us all. Amen. Have a good one, all of you. Yom Tov, as they say in Hebrew. Have a good day. Shalom. Peace.